Welcome back to Making It with Minglet. Yes, I've been missing in action, but I've been busy. The list of things that have happened, things have broken, things had to be fixed, and needless to say, this is the time of the year that I have to get a job done, and so I don't have time to be dallying around. So I have been using a lot of my spare time doing some mushrooms to get ready for making my journal that I make for cluster busters. And so I started out, I was at the racetrack last Saturday, and I started with just pieces of paper. And I took those pieces of paper and I took a Sharpie and I just made the shape of a mushroom. And I then took this particular kit. It's called Stampin' Up. It was Watercolor Wonders, and it's just little colored pencils that make really pretty watercolors. So that was the second thing I did. So I drew them out on the pieces of paper that I had taken from a book, and then the next day, while the race was on TV on Sunday, the NASCAR race, I sat down and colored them. Then I took my brush and I blended them, and some of them I cut out, and some of them I did not. I tore the paper, and I have made some cards to go in. Now I want to tell you a little bit about this Stampin' Up watercolors. They were gifted to me from my neighbor's estate, and they still were in the plastic. So I was anxious to try them, and they really worked well. So I am really happy that I can give these a good life and a good home, and I have already found a good way to use them. I even took these when we did our recent road trip. I took these and I would draw flowers that I saw along the way, and I had fun with them. So I want to thank Miss Pat in heaven for that, and for her daughters for thinking of me and allowing me to go up and choose some things. Now, a lot of these papers that are pre-made came from some of her stash, and this was something that she had already put together, and I added the mushrooms to it and I stitched around it. I've also I went to my sewing machine yesterday to stitch things to try to get them ready to go into journals. I'm making two journals this year. I normally only make one, and people really want to get one, so I'm going to try to do two this year. Our theme is for our departing night, our banquet night is Saturday, and our theme is the Roaring Twenties because the organization is 20 years old, and that's going to be fun. We're going to dress up like flappers and have a good time. So this bag here is from the candy store that we go to. When we go to Boone, the kids want to go to the Mass General store, and that's kind of a family tradition for us. This is just some scraps that I've made a flap. So this can become a pocket, and it also can be a tuck spot. And I guess I should look and see if I'm not quite in focus. Sorry about that. This is a page that I actually used melted wax crayons on. It has kind of an odd feel to it, almost like wax paper. And I've had it for a while, but I added some of this to it. This I used the book pages. This was some scraps I had just cut out. This one is actually has a double pocket, so I can put two different tuck things in. Let's see. So I have a tuck spot there and a tuck spot here, so I'll be able to hold two different ones. And I had extra, so I just wrapped it around. And this may still get a mushroom. I have made some more. And I tried to make flaps as much as I could because I'm not sure how I'm going to use these yet. I just, picked out some colors that I like. That's another one of the doubles. And that was out of my junk stuff. And this is what every person that has ever had a cluster headache, these words really ring true. I don't need this. If you've ever had a headache of any kind, that's the first thing you think. I don't need this. I made this into a pocket instead of it being a belly band, and I wrapped it around. That's a little bit of the map that I used. And this was kind of funny. This is how lazy an artist can get right here. You see that? My bobbin ran out, and I was almost through, and I said, oh, well. And then I decided just to go ahead and run it and let it punch holes in it for the texture. And I'm going to take some watercolor and go back over this piece. So I'm going to put this one over here because I know I need to do something else to it. This is tissue paper, and this is, another one of those little watercolors. This one's I made into a belly band. And on the back, it's going to have that stitching. And like I said, the ones that have that stitching on the solid side, I kind of feel like I want to do something with that. This, I just made a flip up. I'm not sure why I did that, but, it's not like you're going to put anything under it. And then there's another, just kind of whimsical kind of piece. This one has a belly band. And this one I just sewed together, and I have not decorated the card that's in it, but I sewed it to where it was a pocket. I didn't even glue it before I did it, so it was very simple to do. And this is one of the scraps from one of Miss Pat's projects. She had made a lot of, she was a true scrapbooker, and she had several pre-made pages that she had not added photographs to. And so I cut a lot of those up to, make use of them. That was one of the things that her family wanted, and that they felt like she would want, is for the things not to just be thrown away, to go to somebody that would use them and love them and appreciate it. And this is one where she had, I think, it looked like a stencil because it had acrylic paint on it, but what I think it really was, after I used it repeatedly, is like some heavy cardstock, but she had cut it and made several pages with the flowers. And so I cut it up, and I used it to make a belly band. And this was out of one of her scraps, and you see, I took some stuff apart because it was like 2 and 3 layers. So rather than waste it, I made like a little pocket here. And this was, some of the scrap stuff. I added tissue paper, and then I added the mushrooms. So, that makes a pretty nice little presentation right there. This one is a tuck spot. Some of the papers that I brought from there were just beautiful. And this was a page that was already done. And she used dots, these glue dots. So it was easy to take it apart, but some of them did not. Some of them left goo. So I had to work with what I had. This one was plain on the back, but she had the button on there. So I just kind of zipped around it, but I'm pleased with that overall. And I did not have to do a whole lot to it. And this, I thought this was really pretty. You see the shimmer? And one thing that people that have cluster headaches or have migraines is, I was already scared. When you get a migraine and when people get clusters, now keep in mind, I do not have cluster headaches. I have their cousin. But you develop like a PTSD, so when I saw this in the book, it said I was already scared. That pretty much describes everyone who has ever had a cluster headache. If they've had one and they have them in cluster groups, they're already scared before the headache ends because they know another one's going to start. And I thought that was very appropriate, so that will definitely be going in the mushroom journal. This was just some of the paper out of a pad, and I really liked the paper. This was off of one of the pieces that she had done, and this was from the saltwater taffy that I got. Yes, I know I'm not supposed to eat it, but that's off the saltwater taffy that I got when we went up north, and it was from Maine. So I wanted to bring it back and share it with the kids, my adult kids. I say kids, they'll always be my kids. Look how pretty that is. It's soft, and most of the time when I make these, I do use gel prints, almost 100% gel prints. But this time, I'm using the materials that I've been given. So this was a magazine page, and I really thought it was very magical looking and very, very pretty. So I added the mushrooms to it. Now this one may or may not make it into the journal that's going, because it's really kind of I might have trouble leaving it, because first off, that was one of my favorite prints. It's got my favorite colors in it. And then this was out of our North Carolina, Our State magazine, and it was talking about stock car racing, and there is a lot of history surrounding moonshine. And a lot of the race car drivers, before they started driving race cars, they were running moonshine from North Wilkesboro. So when I saw this, the colors were perfectly my favorites. And then this was out of a magazine I picked up in Boone, and there was one for every month. It was like a little postage stamp, but it was the little mushroom. So I just put it together. Now, like I said, it may not make it to the journal that goes to the conference. This one was out of the same magazine from our North Carolina, Our State, and this was talking about a gentleman that is known for, all of the varieties of mushrooms that he collects and sells. So I thought that was really pretty. It's a good illustration of mushrooms. And I did not fold it perfectly centered so that it would have this overlapping if you looked at it together. And then this was, I haven't folded this page yet, but this was the page that they had included. The man's name was Craig Carter, and he has anything from shiitakes to lobster mushrooms and just numerous different kinds. But look how adorable his little sales booth is. And I thought that was so cool. And I just picked out, a printed paper to put on it, and I sewed it. So it's a good strong piece of paper. And then my last one that I have for today is, this was another one of those pages that I melted crayon on. Basically, what I did was I put shavings inside the book pages, and then I used my iron with parchment paper over it, and it takes a while to do it, and it takes a while for it to really dry solid. And I kind of had put this book away and forgot about it, so when I was pulling pages, I run across them, and I thought, I need to use those. So this was, my goddaughter lives in a complex where they have parking, and when my kids go over to visit with her or go to the pool and hang out, they have to have a parking tag. So when their tags expire, I've been snatching them. And this one I thought worked out pretty good because it's got the hole in it, and that was a beautiful flower. Can you see it? And this was off some of the candy that came from the Mass General Store. So I did stitch around this part. That was off of some of Miss Pat's stuff. and I thought it was so pretty. I didn't want to waste anything, so that's what I got there. And then I had this little tag that was in with her stuff, and I just put that on there. I may add something else. I actually thought about I may use this at the top, but this is some yarn that has been around forever. My daughter was still in junior high when it was bought, and she used it as part of a project that she was making. And we have used it and used it and used it. But look at that, it gives it kind of a mossy look. So I think that that will be going on there. Now here's the next batch of mushrooms. And yes, somebody in my house loves brie cheese. And when they got this, they thought they had gotten the mother load. But I kind of thought, wait a minute. She was going to put it in a recycle bin. I said, hey, I need something to put my mushrooms in. But here's what they look at like before I put them on anything. It's just a good variety, and I'm telling you, I am not a person that draws well, but I started looking at all the doodles of mushrooms, and I kind of got the hang of it, and I thought, okay, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simple, but yet be nice. So there's probably 50 or better here. I had to take my daughter to an appointment. She has been newly diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and so she's gone through some different stages, but she has now started a biologic to try to control those symptoms since she's been on prednisone for almost 4 months now, and we're just praying that this is going to work. She had her first one a week and a half ago, but I sat and did the same thing. When I take her to an appointment, I'll sit with her, or I'll sit in the car, depending on what she's getting done. And for instance, she had one of her appointments yesterday, and I started trying something different. These are just some doodle flowers, and there's nothing fancy about them. I did go to my Pinterest and look at the doodles I had saved, and I sat there and I kept doodling. I started with the lazy ones first, but then I started doing some that were a little bit nicer. And one of my the YouTubers that I watch is Karen McCoy, and she is slapping paint on paper. And she did 31 days during July where she painted, and most of the time she paints flowers, and they turn out so beautiful. So I have been inspired to make an effort to try to paint flowers. Now, some of them I folded in half, and I will cut them out. I'm going to paint them and then cut them out. This particular one is going to resist the paint, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not sure exactly how I will do these, but I'm going to cut them out and see what I have, and then I'll go from there. If they need more color, I will figure out what will work. I know I could use Sharpie. I know I could use the Posca pens. So there is, that. These were inspired by hydrangeas. It doesn't look exactly like them, but in my mind, that's kind of how the shape is. And these were just simple flowers, daisies and butterflies. So the next time you see these, they will be cut out, and I will continue to work on them. And that's what I'm carrying those in my purse, and anytime that I have that I can doodle and try to work on some things to put in these journals that I'm making. That's what I'm doing because we've just been slammed with stuff around the house. It's just been crazy, the kinds of things that we've had to do lately. And one day it was too hot to work outside, and they were calling for rain, so we couldn't paint our steps that need to be painted. They're ready. They've dried out enough to where the wood is, dried to where we can paint it now. We've had to wait, but it was too hot, so we started cleaning out, deep cleaning section of our basement. And if you have not cleaned areas in a while, it's amazing what you find. We filled up a couple of boxes that are going to Goodwill, and there were some goodies in there that just brought back memories because we hadn't seen them in so long. But that's just a reminder that we're trying to downsize, and we need to get to a place where we're doing better with our things. So, last thing I'm going to share with you is this right here. And this was inspired by, let's try not doing it upside down. This was inspiration I got from our trips up to the New England states. We went to a couple of races, and I picked up some brochures and things, so I cut out, just kind of tore out some things. But I always tell you to be well, because that is my number one goal. Is I want to be supportive of other people that deal with invisible diseases and illnesses. I want them to know that I care and that, you're in my prayers, because it's not easy, and it's just something that if you deal with it, you know. If you know, you know. So anyway, I tore these things out. That's probably the most beautiful sky. That was in a magazine over an ocean. This is one of the maps that I picked up when we were up in Vermont. And so I put this together, and then I stitched it while I still had white thread on my machine. And I really like the way it turned out. I think I will frame it. But until next time, be well, my friends. Bye-bye.